All right, Patrick, the recording is on. I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and kick things off.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. So everyone, thanks for joining us today. We're excited to be here to talk to you about Microsoft's communication compliance solution. As Steve said, I'm Patrick David. I'm a program manager on our customer acceleration team. I work with customers to help implement Microsoft compliance solutions. One of those solutions being communication compliance that we're going to talk about today. So we're, again, excited to be here. With me today, co-presenting with me is Daniel. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself? Get started.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Cosero. I am a program manager on the communication compliance team.
Awesome, great. So just a quick agenda here. So what we're going to talk about communication compliance, why it's important for your district or for your school. Maybe you're using it today, maybe you're not. Maybe you'll get some tips from here. We're going to talk about how does it work, high level, and then we're going to get into a demo with two scenarios that we think education are relevant to education customers as yourself. So. And we're going to close out with some resources, and we're going to leave some time at the end for questions and answers. Definitely we want to be interactive. So feel free, raise your hands, post your messages in chat, your questions in chat. We want to make this interactive. We want to make this time valuable to you. So definitely feel free to ask your questions throughout. So as we know, the past 2 years has put a deeper focus on the growing demand for communication platforms. And we know that we've seen these platforms be able to be used for more than maybe just what we're used to with classroom learning. These have expanded into our day-to-day lives to include things like sports teams, Greek life, or even other day-to-day social interactions. And so this has put a big, deep focus on making sure that these platforms that are used by our students, faculty, and staff are safe. And we'll talk about how communication compliance can help with that. So having platforms like this, while necessary, may lead to communication risk for your organization or for your school. And these can be things like threats, bullying, harassment, maybe it's cyberbullying, just to name a few. And as you'll see, communication compliance can help you quickly detect, respond, and act on these broad range of communication risk, all while protecting end user privacy. So let's start by talking about communication compliance at a high level, right? So we've got, as you'll see, 4 pre-configured policy templates that you can get started with, or you can build your own policy templates to quickly get started detecting violations across Teams, Exchange Online, and even non-Microsoft solutions such as Slack and Zoom, just to name a few. So whether you're going to use our machine learning capabilities, our image detection, or out-of-the-box sensitive information types, or maybe you want to bring your own keywords or lexicons, we give you these capabilities out of the box to quickly get started building policies and detecting violations, as you'll see. Once an alert is triggered, a team of investigators can go in and take remediation actions, such as maybe notifying a student or notifying a user of the inappropriate message. Maybe it's something like removing a message from Teams. The message is inappropriate. We want to get rid of that message from Teams. Or we want to kick off a workflow, right? With the full capabilities of Power Automate are integrated into the solution to kick off a workflow to do any number of actions, you'll see. So we do this, as we know with schools, right? End user privacy is super important. And so we allow you to build this into the product, the pseudo-anonymization. So we've got that built into the product that you can enable. And we also offer role-based access control capabilities so admins can configure who's actually accessing the solution and what reviewers are actually able to see as far as policies. And we'll talk about this. And all of this is done in a way that the actions are audited, tracked in your environment. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So as mentioned, communication compliance is part of our insider risk solution that Microsoft has. It's designed to help minimize your communication risk by detecting, capturing, and acting on inappropriate messages in your environment. So to do this, we start by creating a communication policy for a group of users or an individual user to check a set of predetermined conditions. And these conditions can be one of the more than 200 out-of-the-box sensitive information types that we have that maybe you're already using for DLP policies today. So think credit card numbers, social security numbers, healthcare information, or maybe it's a custom sensitive information type that you've brought into the organization or a bank of keywords that you use. We also have out-of-the-box machine learning capabilities, which we call trainable classifiers, to help you detect things such as harassment, discrimination, profanity, threat, and even image detection for things like adult images, gory images, racy images. So we have all those capabilities built in. And then we also have the ability to detect these with optical character recognition. So as you'll see, Daniel will give you an example where we've got an image and the inappropriate messages is on the image itself. So we have that all built in to the solution today as you're building your policies. So once you've got your policies built and we've got an high-level understanding of how this works, what locations can we actually start to review or scope in to a policy? So without any additional configuration or setup, we can detect policy violations in Microsoft 365 solutions such as Exchange, Teams, Yammer, or Skype for Business. And then we have the ability to detect violations in over 50 other communication mediums, such as Zoom, Slack, or SMS, by setting up either a Microsoft native connector or a partner connector. And so we know, especially in education, right, you're not only using maybe Microsoft's products, but we see customers using other products, non-Microsoft products, and so you have the ability to bring in those communications and also monitor for those. So once a policy condition is matched, right, so we've set up our policy, we're looking for a set of conditions, an investigator can go in and take action on those policy matches. And this could be anything from simply reminding a user about a code of conduct policy that we have for our school, or maybe it's deleting that inappropriate message from Teams, or building a automated process using Power Automate integration, which is built right into the solution, as you'll see. If the case warrants it and it's something more severe, we can even escalate this and all the messages that were detected to an e-discovery case for further legal review or further actions that might need to be taken without leaving the product. And again, we do this all while it's being tracked, while it's being audited, and you can even pull those audit logs into Sentinel or your other SIM solution. So maybe you're using Splunk or something like that. You can pull this all into those solutions. So with that, as a high level, let me turn it over to Daniel, where he's going to dive into the solution and do a deep dive into two scenarios that we think might be relevant in an education setting. The first one's around a medical research team who's working with patient health data, and the second one is around general student life. Daniel?
All right, awesome. Thank you, Patrick. So let's start off with logging in as a communication compliance admin and go over what it's like to actually create a policy. And so I've logged in as the communication compliance administrator, where I'm presented the Compliance Center homepage. And from here, I'll navigate to the left and see communication compliance and select it. From there, I'm given the communication compliance homepage. Now I'm just going to minimize the left navigation bar to see the full view of the communication compliance homepage, where I'm presented with a list of policies that I have already created. Now I can actually take a couple different actions on these policies, including being able to edit the policy and its associated conditions, delete the policy and remove it entirely, pause the policy from stopping any future scans, and copying the policy. In case I wanted to make a duplicate policy or something, a policy very similar to this one without having to start from scratch all over again. Now, let's dive into what it's like actually creating a policy. And let's create a custom policy that tries to, that is scoped to my medical research team within my university. And this policy would look for healthcare PII within these users. And so I'll select the create policy option, where I'm then presented with a couple of different options. Now, the first four are pre-configured templates, but let's create a custom policy. Oh. Someone have a question? Okay. Okay, so let's actually dive into creating a custom policy. So I'll select the last option. From there, I'm presented with the policy creation wizard. And in the first step, I can input a name and a description. And I've done so, I'm naming it the medical research, and I'll select next. In the next step, I can actually scope the policy to a specific group of users, exclude any users or groups, as well as assign reviewers to take remediation actions and view the policy matches within this policy. And communication compliance uses role-based access control. So only users who have the right permissions to view this communication compliance policy will be able to do so and take remediation action. And so let's scope this policy down to just the medical research team within my university. And I've done so above. And then I'm not going to exclude any users or groups. And I'm going to go straight to reviewers. And so I'll add Christoph and Adele as my coworkers who will be looking through the pending list of policy matches and taking associated remediation actions from anything found. I'll select next. In this step, I'm actually able to edit the locations. And so the locations of communications to detect from. And so not only are the Microsoft 365 locations available to me, but also we make available more than 60 third-party connectors and third-party sources to be able to detect communications from. And so I've actually added Slack and Zoom, and because that's two areas where that are non-Microsoft that I want to detect these communications from, as well as Teams. And so I've selected them here, and I'll select next. And at this step in the policy creation wizard, I can actually add the conditions, the direction, the communication direction, enable or disable optical character recognition, and adjust the review percentage. And so I'm going to leave the communication direction as is, and I'll just add a condition to input my sensitive info type, my custom sensitive info type of healthcare PII lexicons. And so I'll select add condition. And then I'll select the option of content contained in any of these sensitive info types. Now, Microsoft already provides to me over 200 pre-configured sensitive info types, but I've created my own with some custom keyword lexicons that I'm trying to look for. So I searched the sensitive info type above in the search bar and selected it here. And then I'll hit add. And then I can see that the sensitive info type has been added as a condition. And that's going to be the only condition I want to add for this policy. So I'll scroll down to see what the other options are. Below that, I'm able to enable or disable optical character recognition, or OCR. And so optical character recognition allows not only for detection within messages of just plain text, but also text within images. And so if there's any sneaky behavior happening where they're trying to game the system and adding PII or inappropriate language in GIFs or images, I'll be able to detect that if I have it enabled. And so I'm going to enable it for this policy. And then on the bottom, I can adjust the review percentage. Now, if the volume is too much to handle, I can actually lower this review percentage and get a random sample of the policy matches to review. But I want to review every single policy match that is found, and so I'll move that slider to 100%. I'll select next, and then I'm given the review and finish page. And here's where I could see in review all of the customization I've done with this policy and its associated conditions. And then I can navigate to the bottom and submit this policy for creation. And then policy will be created. And in addition to custom policies, as I said before, we also provide pre-configured templates. And so if you select one of those options, you're given this template sidecar. And in this case, I'm trying to actually create a policy pretty quickly with trying to detect offensive or threatening language. And so I want to detect this language within my College of Business within my university. And so I'll leave the policy name as the default offensive or threatening language, but I'm going to scope this policy down to, instead of my entire university, just the College of Business. And so I've added the College of Business as the selected users, and then added my two reviewers of the policy. And then the rest of the conditions have been already pre-configured and filled in. And this policy actually uses Microsoft's trainable classifiers. And so I'll be able to, instead of using the sensitive info types, be able to use machine learning to find these offensive or threatening language. Now, I want that ends the communication compliance administrator of creating a policy. Now let's take a look at the communication compliance investigator role, a couple of different actions they can take and what their experience is like in the solution. So I'll log in as the communication compliance investigator. And again, I'm presented the Compliance Center homepage. I'll navigate to the left and select communication compliance. Here I'm brought back to the communication compliance homepage with a list of policies that have been assigned to me. And now when I dive into this policy and we'll take a look at a couple different policy matches, I just want to have a disclaimer beforehand. There are offensive and inappropriate language that might be shown on the screen, and I apologize if it offends anyone. It is not meant to offend anyone. It's just something that we can detect with these types of policies. So I'll select the one of the policies that I have been assigned to review, and I'll select the offensive messages policy. I'm giving a snapshot of the brought to the overview page of the policy and given a snapshot of a couple of different details and items within the policy. But I want to review some of the pending matches. And so I'll select the pending tab. And then I'm brought to the list of policy matches. And so I can see here, seems as though Christoph has sent a message that is in a language that is foreign to me. And so one of the options that I have as an investigator is to actually I have the option of the translation tab. And so once I select the translation, automatically communication compliance converts the language that's foreign to me to my preferred language setting. And so now I can understand as to why this was caught by the policy and can then take some remediation action. Scrolling further down the list, I see another message was sent by Christoph, but this one doesn't seem to be an offensive message, or is not something that I want to detect within this policy. And so I can actually report this one as misclassified on the bottom right. And then so I'll select that. And then I'm given the proposed misclassified sidecard, where I can resolve the item and let Microsoft know that this was misclassified. And essentially what this does is it strips all the PII information, all the identifiable information, and sends the message and the feedback to Microsoft to further train these machine learning models. And so this actually results in less false positives and makes the trainable classifiers more accurate. And so I'll actually hit the send message content, and then I'll submit this for feedback. As I continue to scroll down the list, I see Christoph has sent yet another message. And this one is actually contains an image. So let's take a look at what the image contains. Because I had OCR enabled within this policy, I was able to detect this type of behavior. Now, Christoph thought he could be sneaky and game the system and have this inappropriate and offensive text within this image. But because I had OCR or optical character recognition enabled in this policy, I was able to detect this type of communication. As a CC investigator, I'm also able to have the capability of a conversation view. And so I can actually view up to 5 messages before and up to 5 messages after the policy match to get a better understanding of what the conversation was like. And so this actually results in a more educated understanding and to take the right remediation action for this policy match. In addition, we also have the user history. Now, Christoph has definitely had a couple of different policy matches in here, and I can actually see that he's had 47 remediation actions taken against him, and that's quite a high number. And so I can see that he also has 3 pending policy matches for review and remediation actions to be taken. And now, because I'm presented with this and this information, you know, it seems as though Christoph is a repeat offender, and so going forward, I'm actually going to be escalating this to AED and into legal. Now, there are cases where a message really needs to be taken down immediately because it may be super offensive or has PII that should not be shared. And so without leaving the communication compliance, you can do so. So when you select the remove message in Teams, you're given this sidecard of pretty much confirming, or are you sure you want to remove this message? You'll select the remove message and then given the confirmation that the message was actually removed. And so if we take a look at the sender's view of this, it actually gives them a notification that the message was blocked and a link of why that might be. And then on the other side, on the recipient's view, they're actually given a message that the message was blocked due to organization policy, as well as a link of why that might be. Now, navigating back to communication compliance, you also have the full capability of Power Automate. And now, if you don't know, Power Automate allows you to run a set of flows. And so these flows allow you to actually automate a couple of different tasks. And so, for example, without leaving communication compliance, you're able to access the communication compliance manager or notify manager template. For example, it's just a template that is by default available to you. And so you're also able to upload your custom flows if you have some and edit them straight in communication compliance. And so let's dive into the Notify Manager template. Now I'll select it and I'll select Continue to go into the flow, see what it's doing, and be able to edit it to my liking. And so essentially what this flow is doing is actually getting the credentials of the offender, the policy match, who has sent the policy match, and then finding his or her manager and then sending an automated message over email to let the manager know of the incident, and so the manager can can hold a meeting or take his or her own remediation action. And so I actually like the template the way it stands, and so I'm not going to make any edits to it. And I'll scroll to the bottom and I'll just hit save. Now, as you can see, it's now available as one of the flows that I can run within communication compliance. And so now all I have to do is select the notify manager flow and then select run. And from there, now it just takes 2 clicks for me to run this flow. And just without leaving communication compliance, I have the full capability of Power Automate. And there's so many other flows that can be created. And there's documentation and videos on all the capabilities of Power Automate. And it's quite impressive that communication compliance was able to actually have this capability within the sidecar. And so that's just a little taste of what the communication compliance investigator has with regards to taking remediation actions and looking through policy matches. There's many, many more, but that was just a small taste of a couple capabilities. And now I'll hand it back off to Patrick to close off.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So just sorry, just getting some feedback here.
It's Daniel. He's going to mute.
So thanks, Daniel. Great walkthrough of some scenarios, and we did have some questions come up. So one question is around the ability to add a group to the reviewers. It is something that we hear. Again, we always are welcoming your feedback, so definitely keep that feedback coming. Something that we hear, and we definitely understand the need for that. So I did paste in the chat too. Right now we've got our feature survey out there, so we definitely would welcome your feedback here. Some steps and guidance here kind of going forward. So hopefully you've seen how easy it is to get your policies created, get started scoping in the users, building your policies for different conditions, and then some of the remediation investigation actions that you can take once a policy match is detected. And then always, as Christopher said, like, we want to hear your feedback, right? So we've got that survey out there now. Definitely feel free. I pasted it in the chat. Go through the survey. We want to hear your feedback. We want to improve our products and make them so that you guys are able to use them and they meet your needs. So definitely always are open to the feedback for this. There's also some links here for some useful information, right? So we've got our documentation link, we've got our deployment acceleration guides out there. And so these are guides to help you quickly get started. We've got our latest news, which is from Inspire a couple months ago, and we're going to have a new blog coming out and a lot of great announcements coming out in 2 weeks now at Ignite. So at Ignite, we're going to be announcing a bunch of new features and functionality for communication compliance. So definitely be looking at our roadmap, looking to see what's coming, and keep that feedback coming to us. So with that, we've got plenty of time here. We definitely want to open it up for you to ask questions, your feedback. If there's scenarios you're running into or items that you want to talk, this is your time. We're here. We want to make this interactive, so definitely feel free to either post your messages in chat, come off mute. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
So it's been a quiet bunch this whole week, but please, if you have any questions, come off mute. Go ahead and post them in chat. We will post the link, the survey link. I don't know if you've done that already or not, Kid. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
I didn't want to steal your thunder.
Like you did the last time. No, that's okay. I do also want to say that The compliance PG group that we have has been fantastic. I've worked with them with several of my higher education accounts around weird things that they found in products, around functionality that they'd love to have, and every single account that has worked to provide feedback has had an awesome experience with them. So this group of people is definitely who you want to make your griefs or improvements or whatever known to.
Yeah, so I think Chris said he's not able to see the results of the poll. I'm just pulling up the results here on my end and seeing. So it doesn't look like anyone in the audience today that responded to the poll is using communication compliance today. Definitely got some folks that seem interested in it. So definitely those that are interested, those aren't using it today. Thoughts on scenarios that we talked about maybe, or things you're thinking about that you could use this in your organization that we could help answer the questions, right? We just shared 2 examples, but obviously the tool is pretty powerful that you could use it for a lot of different scenarios here.
There's a question.
Yeah. So Chris says, I blinked sensitive information type. Can we look inside of it? Malicious speech sense. Oh, so are we talking, sorry, Chris, are we talking like the trainable classifiers? You want to understand what we're looking for there?
Yeah, I've looked before a little bit at the sensitive item types, and especially like SSNs, and saw how you can have different levels of confidence. Is there any kind of, can we look inside any of that? I don't quite know what is there any choices, like some things are okay, I don't care if people in this community curse, but if they say anything hateful, I do care. Like, do we have controls over any of that?
Yeah, so actually, so there's 2 different options that you have with communication compliance, and one's the sensitive info, adding sensitive info types as a condition, but you're also able to add a trainable classifiers. And so if profanity is okay, or you deem it as okay within the group of users that you have it's scoped to, then we have not only just the profanity trainable classifier, but we also have the harassment and the threat classifier. And so the template, the offensive messages template that I had shown and then gone through with as the CC investigator, that included the profanity trainable classifier, but you do have the option of removing that. And so if you don't want to detect profanity, you don't have to. You can still use, if you want to use the trainable classifiers, you still have the ability of using it for harassment and threat. Now on the sensitive info type area, it's specific to detecting keywords. And so unlike the trainable classifiers that look at the message as a whole and use machine learning, sensitive info types, you're looking at keywords and lexicons to detect specific cases of whether it be harassment or PII or sharing of information. Now there is documentation I can share with regards to how to use the confidence levels, and they use the not only the primary but a secondary keyword lists and dictionaries to utilize with the confidence levels. But it's a sensitive info types in itself is a big topic that I can definitely share some documentation on that can might be helpful to you if that's something that you would like to use with your policies. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that so you have one trainer or classifiable trainable classifier for profanity, and another for harassment, and you've merged them together in one policy.
Correct. Yeah. See,
Okay.
you can add up to as I forgot what the limit was, if there is any. You can add multiple trainable classifiers to a policy. You can add just one. But if you want to utilize the machine learning that communication compliance provides to you, you do have that option. And it's, to name a few, is harassment is one, profanity is another, threat is another, and then also detecting images using Azure Cognitive Services. It's those trainable classifiers are adult images, racy images, and gory images. And then we have actually another one in preview now, and is on our roadmap of discriminatory language. Is another trainable classifier that we'll be rolling out.
Yeah, and Chris, I'm just trying to pull it up here real quick. So just as Daniel was saying, so the sensitive information types, we've got documentation on what those are. You can't really go in and see like the threat one and hey, here's all the things that we detect a threat. It's not only about like, it's not a keyword match, right? So we're detecting the context around that, right? So that's why it's not just like a list of words that we're looking for with those. But when you go to create your policy in, let's say, an offensive language policy, if we do the template here and we actually customize this policy as we're going through here. Just add a reviewer here so I can go to the next screen.
Usually, but it helps if you just put admin. There's
Yeah,
always
there we go. There's always an admin, right? So we've got our locations, and then here we've got our matches. And so we've got each one of these as a particular trainable classifier. So if you didn't care about profanity for your group, you could delete this particular trainable classifier. Maybe you're worried about harassment and threat. So these are each their own policy trainable classifier that we can add in here. And as mentioned, we also now have the discrimination here, but you can configure your policy to include all of these or a subset of these. And then again, these are supported. I don't know if we even mentioned this, but these are supported in 8 different languages today, and more languages coming soon. So would that helps, Chris?
Yeah, thanks.
And also to mention, you are able to then add, say, if you wanted the machine learning classifiers, and you have a sensitive info type that you want to also detect from, you do have that option of adding both of those. And so, as Patrick is doing here, you can add another condition that is also pulls in your sensitive info type.
Yeah, so you can add as many conditions and ors in here to meet kind of your needs. So let's say it was one of these and maybe a credit card number I wanted to look for, or a credit card number in this case, I could select and make that available. So we've got the trainable classifiers, we've got the out-of-the-box sensitive information types, and then any sensitive information types that you have. So maybe you've got a list of keywords that you brought in, or maybe you've got your regular expressions. If you're using maybe DLP policies today, you could bring those in here. And then there's also several other conditions. So maybe it's messaging with other domains, or messages coming in from other domains that we want to look for, or file size we can look for, file types that we want to look for. So there's a number of conditions that you could build out in here. And I think Daniel mentioned about the limit here. It's a limit of the policy. So it's not just like how many conditions you can have and ors. All of these combine up into an XML file. And there's a limit on the size of that XML file. So There's a lot of conditions that go into what you could have here, but yeah, there's you definitely can customize, and this is flexible to meet your needs. So.
And we see a lot of customers actually use the exclude from these domains condition because they're trying to detect certain types of language, and they get these newsletters that come up every week, and they don't want to include those in their policy matches, and so you can actually exclude those domains and exclude those newsletters from continuing to populate your pending list.
All right, if there's no other questions, I guess we can end it a little early, give people back a little bit more of a break between now and the next session. Patrick, Daniel, thank you very much for your time. I will be pinging you to share your deck out if that's okay. And at this point, I'm going to stop the recording.